Hi, this is Nika Quirk. I'm core faculty with the Integral MBA in Creative Enterprise at Meridian University. And as part of our series, Transforming Enterprise Operations, a series of webinars that's part of our current operations management course, I'm joined tonight by Lisa Chacón, who is co-founder and COO of HUB Oakland. And we're going to have a delightful conversation joined by participants who will come in with questions and answers, and we'll go from there. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Nika. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, and you and I see each other pretty often at the Hub, but this is a whole new thing for us to be doing together.
That's fun. I like it.
Yeah. Really grateful for your willingness to join us this evening. So the Hub has been open for about 2 years, counting the pop-up Hub, which went for 5 or 6 months, I think it was. And then the opening of the Grand Hub in the new place, the new remodeled buildings, was in February of 2014, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
And we've been going ever since, going strong. So to kick it off, one of the things that I'd love for you to share about is that process of starting up and establishing such an amazing creative enterprise. And I just want to give a little definition of that too, because Meridian uses a particular definition around this. We consider a creative enterprise any pioneering action. It could be in many different forms, because we're seeing so many hybrid forms of organizing these days. But an enterprise that is combining transformative innovation and financial viability, that really is the focus, to hold those two aspects of the mission very strongly as they start up and grow the organization. So we look at you as a creative enterprise, and we just love to hear how that has unfolded during this initial time.
Great. Okay. Should I say a little bit about what HUB Oakland is first, or does everybody know? Okay.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. So HUB Oakland is a co-working space. It's a physical space that's about 16,000 square feet in downtown Oakland. It has there are several aspects to our business. It's fairly complex in a way. By day, it is a co-working space. People are here working on their projects, working on their laptops, drinking lots of coffee, using Wi-Fi, collaborating. We have different kinds of work areas for different work styles. We have a loud and collaborative zone. We have a quiet work area. We have lounge work area. We have 22 private offices that are leased by different organizations, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit. They're working across many different sectors. By night, the space transitions into a, looks like I froze for a minute. By night, the space transitions into an event venue. We have all kinds of events, from speaker events, mixers, parties, film screenings, on and on and on, gallery openings. We have an art gallery. There's just a lot of curation of really interesting programming having to do with, every possible topic related to sustainability, social justice, and more in that zone. So the business model breaks into several parts. There is the co-working business, which people buy memberships that are kind of like a gym membership, but it's using an office instead of a gym. We have also the private offices, which is another part of the business model, another revenue stream. We have the events revenue stream. We also have conference room rentals, which is a fairly sizable revenue stream. And the order of the size of them, the office is the first, the memberships are next, the events are next, and the conference rooms are last. So that just gives you maybe a bigger picture of what's happening here. Multiple uses. We get really high utilization of the space from 8 a.m. until midnight, probably. Might be a typical day. And there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a very dynamic space. And your question...
But not happening on the weekends, right?
Events takes over primarily on the weekends. There are some, unlimited co-working levels that do have access for co-working during the weekends, but it's a pretty small number of people who actually want to do that, which is good. I think it's good for people to go play or rest and not work 24/7. Anyway, and your question had to do with what's it been like to bring this space online or
yes, like sharing a little bit about the experience of what we talked about the other day was, how startup is focused, and especially establishing the operations of a brand new enterprise.
Yeah. And
then moving into year 2 and what the shift is. And,
got it.
So I think that stream is very interesting for people.
Yeah. Well, I think because it's a brick and mortar space, there are a lot of startups that are making apps or software or something. Very different needs, very different operational needs than a physical space. A lot of just every possible system that you can think of, whether it's HVAC or plumbing or Wi-Fi and internet or, just on and on and on, has had issues. It's like you got to work all the kinks out. And it's really basic human needs kind of stuff that the space provides, that it's kind of like, if you don't have running water, if you don't have working plumbing, if the HVAC is freezing you out, which we're still having a problem with that even a year later, but and actually the plumbing is no joke. In our first weekend of operation, the plumbing failed. There was a pump in the basement that stopped working, and there were 400 people in here. We had an event with 400 people on our first weekend of operation in this new space. It was a hackathon, and the plumbing, the sewage pump broke in the basement. And so every time somebody flushed a toilet upstairs, there was like water and sewage squirting out in the basement. That was like our first weekend. And we didn't even have a mop or a broom or anything. I remember running to Home Depot to pick all that stuff up. There were like 400 people spilling pizza and flushing the toilet. It was kind of chaotic. And none of us really had experience running a space. So, we've all had to sort of learn and get really smart about space issues really fast. I have an operations manager who reports to me, and she laments that the parts of the business that she's responsible for are the things that people complain about. It's like the Wi-Fi is not working, we're out of toilet paper, there's a leak in the basement, there's something broken that needs to be fixed. So it gets pretty real, and it's not the sexy stuff or the fun stuff. It's meeting those basic needs.
Yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? It's a very mission-based business, very values-oriented, big vision. And yet what we wind up doing is running to Costco and getting a mop, or, having to deal with that, because operations really is about delivering all the value in the organization that is to be delivered to the users, the customers, the members.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at all those different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they want you to be holding this vision for them and delivering on that. But, you know, you have to have good coffee too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Fair trade and organic. That was a mission moment for us, actually, because I'm just going to tell this little story because it's funny. You know, we were pricing coffee and looking at different coffee vendors, and, you know, there was one firm that was women run, local. They had fair trade and organic coffee, and it was expensive. And there was another coffee company that was organic, but not fair trade. And, you know, maybe they were not so local, they were bigger. And, you know, I remember sitting with my co-founders and they said, well, is it going to be fair trade or is it going to be organic? And I said, wait a minute. Why do we have to choose? It needs to be sustainable and socially just. Therefore, it has to be organic and fair trade. We're going with it, and we're going to ask our members to give us $1 every time they get a cup of coffee, because we're getting the good stuff. We're getting the stuff that's good for everybody, the earth, the workers. And, you know, so we've made decisions like that where, you know, it's like, well, we'll spend a little more and we'll ask our community to help us support fair trade and organic products.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the other thing that I wanted to say in response to what you said, Nika, was, you know, it's not just the space. You know, the space is sort of the first thing. You walk into the building, you see the space, you feel the vibe. But the other aspect of our business is really a community. It's a membership-based community. And that is another level of service and operations, you know, to operationalize member experience and to aim for exceptional member experience. That's sort of another layer of operations that I would say we're really still trying to get our arms around. I feel like the space is much more under control. We have more of the systems, you know, so you're asking about the pop-up to the, you know, launching the big space, and now a year and a half into the big space. I think we're really, you know, we've got a lot of good systems in place. We still have things that break, but, you know, at least we know who to call now, and it's a lot faster to get them fixed. But really where we're focusing our efforts now is on improving the member experience. You know, how do we improve? We have as I said, a collaborative side and a quiet work side. And the quiet work side is a source of tension right now because people go there and then people come through, they talk on their phone and they walk through. So how do you operationalize a quiet space and, you know, really make that be comfortable for the people who want to work there and also for people who are also co-using the space? So things like that. And we actually happen to be working right now with a team of a design MBA intern team from California College of the Arts. So they're working with the business model canvas and the value prop canvas to help us work on our member experience and our customer service.
Mm-hmm. So doing the customer discovery aspect of
exactly
business model generation process. Because that's what we're using in this course also. You and I had talked about that the other day. And so it's, you know, it's particularly interesting to see these tools being used by an organization too, you know, as you're evolving. That it's, you know, not just, oh, we do this before we do anything, you know, as an idea prototyping. It's also very much a part of growing the organization, seeing what's next, tapping back into the customers like you're doing. So another thing that I've noticed, you know, just to comment on what you were just talking about, that there's a very thoughtful process of holding a sense of place. And there are multiple people that do that. You know, Ro Cummings is one of them. Ashara is one of them. You know, I I've seen people come in the morning and just very thoughtfully reconfigure the space into something completely different, you know, and bring an aesthetic to it and those types of things. So recently, one of the things that I noticed was how you're operationalizing collaboration. Because in the co-working space, even though it's set up with these sort of pedal designed tables where, you know, people are oriented towards each other, right? Mm-hmm. Not in rows or, you know, spaced in cubicles or that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You know, the collaboration wasn't as full as it is now. There are some things that you shifted. You brought in these big whiteboards. You put them around so that people can, in a moment, you know, partner, team, brainstorm. They can actually organize them into a little private space and make a little room out of them, that type of thing. So how does that process happen? You know, like how does somebody notice that and then make that operational set of decisions?
That's a really funny one, because they were a gift, and somebody, well, not a gift, a loan from somebody who didn't have they were clearing out their storage unit and they didn't want to keep it anymore, and they had these massive whiteboards and they brought them all in, and I was like, oh no, these are too big, they're going to block the view, they're going to chop up the space, like I don't like them, you know, they're a little clunky. But we did an experiment, and that's something that we're really good at doing, is prototyping and experimenting. And it turns out that they are actually pretty useful. I've used them a lot. I've, you know, configured them a lot and, you know, pulled them out of the space, and they really have served us well. So that is, you know, and I think we've had a lot of other little experiments in the space of how we set up the furniture, what types of furniture we use. Like Nika said, there's a type of table that I didn't actually mention, that the Impact Hub, there's an Impact Hub network. There's 72 Impact Hubs in the world, different cities. And there's a history and a community, they have different communities of practice around space design, around furniture design, around hosting, the art of hosting. If you've ever heard of that as a training that sort of co-evolved with Impact Hubs, which were formerly just hubs without the word impact. And that, you know, so, you know, in programs, there's a community of practice in, you know, a lot of expertise in the Hub network. So in terms of the furniture, they actually invented this pedal table, which has these lobes, kind of like a flower. And the intention was to create little pods where people could cluster and, you know, bump in, you know, just increase the likelihood of you know, interactions and random encounters and whatnot. So we have those in the space as the main type of seating in the collaborative zone. On the quiet side, which we call the library side, the tables look like library tables. They're really long. All the chairs face, you know, to the middle. And when, you know, we didn't quite get the little library lamps in the middle, but even in some of our architects' renderings, we had those lamps, you know, just as a signal, like, oh, I'm coming in here, I need to be quiet, I'm not interacting with the person sitting next to me facing this way, you know, we're all sort of doing our own thing. So we've been very intentional, even with the furniture, to sort of foster different types of behaviors and activities. And, you know, it's a great point that I think it's great that you've watched this whiteboard experiment. And I have also seen a lot more collaboration. You know, I walk around and I see what people are writing on the whiteboards. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Cool. What are you guys working on? You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives it more of a like a lab feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everything being very flexible and movable.
Yep.
So I know that you have deep roots in the integral world. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're an integralist.
Mm-hmm.
And so could you speak a little bit about that influence in the founding of Impact Hub Oakland, and the any ways that you see that it's like baked into the foundation, the structures, that type of thing, where you struggle to deepen it, you know, that where you're aware of that, those kinds of things?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So, so when I was the managing director of an organization called Bay Area Integral, and I really helped build it from 8 people to a couple hundred people who would show up at an Integral event, and a mailing list of, you know, several thousand. And I did that between 2008 and 2012. And one of the things that I really saw a lack in our own sort of integral community was that we didn't have a space. And if you know about the lower right, you know that you need physical spaces and structures in order to have an integral anything, right? That's part of it. And so we were meeting in different, you know, a church here, a wellness center there for our meetings. And it was really a longing for a space that would be a container for us, and that we could, you know, meet more regularly. We could see each other on a regular basis, build deeper connections, maybe collaborate more, start working together. Because I saw a lot of people applying integral theory in really interesting ways, but working very independently and not collaborating at all, and not bringing back the knowledge that they, or, you know, whatever learnings they'd had in applying integral theory in education or consulting or business or whatever. And, you know, that just being all very divergent. So I actually wanted to create a space, a co-working space for integralists called the We Space. And I wrote a business plan. I took an entrepreneurship course because I didn't know anything about starting a business. I still don't know very much, but I've learned it all the hard way. And that was actually my original inspiration. I was a member at the Hub in San Francisco at that same time. And I really didn't think that the vision that I had of the space, the We Space, would fit under the Hub brand. And it just wasn't, it didn't seem congruent with what I saw in San Francisco. Nothing against San Francisco, but you know, what I wanted to see more of was, you know, a way for people to bring their whole selves into the space, a way for people to have a practice, daily, you know, whatever their integral life practice may be, a place to do that during the workday, you know, so meditate or do some yoga or get some body work. I wanted to see a broader definition of entrepreneur, not just tech entrepreneurs, but, you know, also wellness entrepreneurs or coaches or, you know, any number of other types of entrepreneurs than you typically find in a co-working space. And so it turned out that I ended up meeting, oh, wow, hang on. There's an automatic light sensor in here. It just turned off. I'm sitting here in the dark. I'm glad I didn't have to jump up. It was, it's usually blocked by something. So one of my co-founders was in that same entrepreneurship class that I took. And when I reconnected with her many months after the course ended, and I had put the project on the shelf to go back and make some more money. I was running out of money trying to build this dream. And she says, oh, well, I'm starting up HUB Oakland. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, I'm working on a co-working space in Oakland too. We should talk. And when we met, I learned that another member of her team who was leading that group was also deeply informed by integral theory. And so we found we had a lot in common, and we were able to join forces and co-lead and co-direct this space. And there's a meditation room, there's an art gallery. There's, we finally did our first, there have been a couple of yoga events here, but we held our first life and balance day-long retreat recently, which was a dream of ours that, we really wanted to see the space used for different things, including, wellness and practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I take people around on a tour, I often say, we have our kitchen, which is the hearth. We have an art gallery. We have a university. We have a law office.
Yeah.
And then everything in between,
Yep.
that it's like a village.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it feels. Very, very integrated in that way. Very holistic.
Yeah.
As you know, we are using Frederick Laloux's Reinventing Organizations material in this course. You and I talked about that the other day, and you were very enthusiastic about the fact that we were referencing that material. So one of the challenges that we've begun to talk about in our class is this having one foot in the orange world while trying to move toward teal. Which is that ecosystem, the organization, the enterprise as a living organism, a living system, and this bridging time that we're in here where we can't just move there wholeheartedly and take everybody with us. It's not that simple. So if you could share, just any insights that you have about that. I know that that's been part of the experience of the co-founders too in running the organization.
Yeah. I was really inspired by that book and really found a lot of interesting reframes on how we're operating, and sort of it opened my eyes to new possibilities, because I think we don't have any great examples. So it was really great in that aspect of really just showing what's working, showing some really successful cases that are doing things very, very differently based on different values, based on different principles. And what I've experienced is, well, first of all, my background, I worked for 10 years in a corporation. So I have some corporate experience. I worked started out as a research scientist in a corporate R&D lab, and worked my way into management and then project management and, leading technical teams, and then ended up in the new business and strategy group for the last year or so of my career there. And, there's when you work in an environment like that, you see a certain type of system that's pretty functional in some ways. There are some things that are healthy. In a healthy system, there are some things that are really great about an orange way of organizing. There's also shadow. There's also things that are not great about that way of organizing, but they do tend to have a really strong operational focus. They're very good and they're very efficient at getting things done. They're not focused on externalities. That's a problem, as we know, but they're really good at doing what they do. So coming from that kind of a background and then working with a team that didn't have that kind of experience was interesting. It's also really interesting, it's a very different skill set between corporate operations versus entrepreneurship. Completely different skill set. I had none of the skills that I needed to start up a company. I had to learn all of that by climbing a steep learning curve on every front. But now that we've been in operations, there are some things that have been helpful to bring in. And I guess one of the big challenges that I've seen is how those kinds of older structures or earlier stage structures like org charts and hierarchies are really powerful drivers of human behavior, both within the self, in relationship to others inside of a team, and in relationship to others outside of your organization, because everybody knows what a CEO is and what a CEO is supposed to do, right? Where you have some sense of what that person does, and you have another sense about what an operations or COO is supposed to do, or a CFO, whatever. Those are pretty clearly defined. We have also been using holacracy as a form of governance and management inside of our company. And while it hasn't been a textbook implementation, we've sort of modified it a little bit here and there. It's a very different way of organizing. And when people ask to see your org chart, like the holacracy one looks really funny. It's circles and, there's like circles inside the circles. And, it's just very confusing to people who aren't, who are expecting a traditional hierarchical org chart. And I find that, because we have these old structures that really, like the way that they drive behavior is really interesting. So in terms of people who reach out to our company and want to have a conversation with a CEO or a COO or a CFO, they see the titles and they'll go and try to talk to this person about something, but the way that we actually do the work and because of our holacracy roles, it's actually kind of very organic in here. It's not that clear cut. And so we confuse people who come and, want to talk to me about something operational. I'm like, well, actually that's Conda's project. She implemented the online billing system. She implemented the website. She did all this, she managed the construction project at the space that we're in right now, while I managed operations at the pop-up location. So our division of labor as co-directors has been very fluid, very organic, not by the book in terms of what the role should be doing. So we confuse people. We confuse ourselves. We confuse our staff. We confuse a lot of people because we don't have really clear roles. That's one thing that even if you're using holacracy, you just have to keep those roles up to date and keep them really clear so that everybody knows who's supposed to be doing what, because things will fall through the cracks, and they do. I found that these titles and also drive a lot of projections, even in amongst our relationships amongst the founders. It even drives projections in, I notice it in myself because I'm not holding the CEO title, but I do many of the functions of a CEO. And for a while, I was really frustrated because I'm like, well, you're not the boss of me. Like I'm an equal decision maker here. I'm an equal partner with you, and I'm equally at risk. And, like if I'm not happy, you don't have the ultimate say. We have to figure this out together because, it doesn't matter that you hold the CEO title and I don't. Like I have an equal voice here. So that even drove behavior in me because of my sort of corporate ingrained hierarchical tendencies. So I think, like where this, reading Lalou and being inspired by some of those examples that I saw, has sort of re-inspired me to take up this holacracy process again, add in the pieces that I'd sort of modified and taken out, and really give it another go, because I really do think there's something valuable in it in terms of that distributed leadership and power in another framing, decision-making power, agentic power. I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's great as a very early stage startup, which is why we were uncomfortable with it, with dispersing that power, because We had a young team, an inexperienced team, and as vision holders, it was too uncomfortable and to give all of that away. We needed to create something before we could share the power around it. We had very strong vision about what this was to be. And I think where our next steps lie is, beginning to let go a little bit and let the system, which is our staff and maybe our work trade members, really inform us of how the system is functioning and bring that feedback in, which Holacracy is really great at. I think I want to experiment with, we need to clean up the roles for starters, but then experiment with titles even. I think I want to get rid of that old structure framing, because I've seen how much projection it drives, between us, in the self, and with others outside.
Thank you. That was fabulous. And I want to open it up for questions and dialogue at this point, because I think we have lots of stuff popping at this point. So do any of our participants have a particular question that you wanted to prompt for Lisa or bring into the space? You can unmute yourself and just present it.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, Lisa. Nice to
Hi,
meet
Tiffany.
you. I actually do go to the hub. Not as often as I would like, because every time I go there, there's not enough room for me. Like, I feel like I have to get there at like 8 o'clock in the morning to get a spot.
That's good feedback. We're getting more tables and chairs, actually. So
I'll get there at like 11 and there's like no place to go. And then I had an experience where I was just like, okay, if I can't get there like at 9, then I can't, it's really hard. But I was questioning, because you talked a lot about, the whole self. And I did note, I'm a mom, and I did notice that there wasn't necessarily a space where children could be. And I was wondering if that was, and I've seen other people bring their kids too, and I was wondering if that was anywhere in the plans for moving in the future. Because Nika had mentioned that there was like a basement that hadn't been developed or something. And I was like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good one. We get that a lot, and we considered it seriously, but there's a lot of liability. There's a lot of extra liability that goes along with having a child center in a space, that we weren't willing to take that risk. We are kid friendly, so we do, kids come, people bring their kids. The kids are, well behaved. It's fine. Even if they were freaking out, I'm sure it would be fine. It would pass. But we are kid friendly, but we don't have a playroom. We do have a digital detox zone that is kind of like a playroom.
Yeah, I've seen people use it.
But yeah, for liability reasons, we decided that was not something that we wanted to take on as a part of our business model. And we're also located across the street from the YMCA that does have some other children's sort of spaces and services. So we just thought we didn't need to do everything.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. Thank you.
And thanks for the feedback about the space, because we sense that it's full, but hearing your story makes me really like, okay, we got to get ready. Yeah. Order those. We're getting new tables and chairs on the 9th of November, which may not be soon enough, but just so you know, there's more coming. And, we can densify the work area. We still have a lot of space that's kind of open on the floor, and we can densify the seating, and it will still feel nice, and it'll give more people places to sit. So thanks.
Yeah. One time, Calgary moved me like 4 times. I kept getting kicked out of a place, and I was like in the middle of a workshop with Nika for our class, something like this. And I was like, okay, I got to move here. And then they moved me, and eventually they placed me in the Omni Gallery.
Got it. Yeah. That was probably because there was an event. Was it at the end of the day?
No, it was, I started off in the Meridian room, and then I told me I had to leave, and then I kind of went outside the Meridian room. I didn't know that was a quiet area, and then they moved me. Uh, and then I got kicked out of the uptown room. They moved me to the uptown, and then I had to leave the uptown, and then they put me in the gallery.
Oh my goodness. That's
So,
wow. We have competing business models. Any of the conference rooms can be booked at any time by any guests even. And so that might make you move around. And the quiet area is a pain point for us because, some people really need and want quiet when, in order to focus and think and get something done. And there are a lot of people who will just sort of wander through on their phone or walk around the mezzanine on their phone or talk loudly on the mezzanine level, and it just carries in. So we're really trying to do a better job to improve their experience, which means we have to sort of work with everyone to together enforce this quiet space and participate in, keeping it quiet. I'm sorry, that sounds like you didn't have a good experience.
No, otherwise I love the space. I'm just very conscious of, you go downtown and you deal with parking, and then you go in there and there's nowhere real to sit, and it's just, but that is a sign. I think that's a good sign in terms of your business model, because from the time that I started Meridian and was going there to the time where I kind of got like, there's way too many people at that, peak hour time. It feels like your membership is growing and it's being utilized. And I also have had really good experience with the whole whiteboard and how you use the whiteboard to create the team, the team meeting spaces. So I have used that several times.
Nice.
And I really appreciate that.
I saw that Joachim unmuted himself a while ago. I think he wanted to jump in with something. So I want to move over to him.
Yeah, hi, my name is Joachim Faust. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. We don't have anything like this here. Maybe we need it. I just wanted to, you mentioned you were strongly mission-based or you have a big vision. Could you say a few words about what the vision is?
Yeah. Well, the community that I told you about, and maybe there's somebody who could mute. Okay. The community that I told you about, maybe I didn't say it directly, but it's a community of social entrepreneurs, people with a social mission. So, there are many co-working spaces. There are others in Oakland. There are lots in the Bay Area. But there is no other brand that has the same social mission as Impact Hubs do. And I would say that even among Impact Hubs, Impact Hub Oakland really shows up with a very, very strong social justice, ethos, and our values are, really, we put a lot of work into defining our values, which, include authenticity, radical inclusivity. I'm not going to remember all of them, which is sad. But those are the two that come to mind as, being some of the really core key ones that make us different. It's really a place for change makers. So people who are trying to work for change in all aspects of society are we also call it home for the movement. Impact Hubs are home for the movement.
Home for the movement?
Mm-hmm. The movement of people seeking positive social change in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, because I was just there again this morning, that Otto Scharmer's Theory U work is offered through an online course called ULab, the ULab course. And Lisa was one of the people that sparked a partnership between the International Impact Hubs organization and the network. and Otto, and I guess the MIT edX delivery platform to do the ULab course, but have hubs at all the hubs that wanted to join. So I think there's 44 hubs participating in this amazing experience. And this morning we found out from Otto that there are 45,000 people participating this time around the world doing this training together. And it's so indicative, I believe, of what Impact Hub Oakland, particularly, which is my only deep experience of Impact Hubs, stands for. We're bringing people in from outside as well as people who are members. There was a woman from Washington, D.C. there. There was a woman from who teaches at the University of Texas. I think there was somebody from Paris the very first meeting. That there is something really exciting about that learning environment that is being hosted. Not just as a virtual experience, but really grounded in the space, just like Lisa was talking about in the integral view. To not have it just be floating there in the virtual land, but to really have these places where people are meeting and working on this together. So it's an expression of the mission and the values very, very palpably, and to hear what was rising in the community. That's kind of the core group of people who were all going through this together. There was something that started to emerge out of this process this morning that is potentially a project about Oakland, and using parts of the ULab process, the tools, to actually dream of a different Oakland and take action towards that. So it was just like a little tiny plant popping up. Lisa was noting, oh, look at that. Look, there might be a little seed that's sprouted, but it's really the way that the operations have created a space for that kind of magic to happen. I think is part of this vision that we see unfolding there all of the time.
Yeah, thank you, Nika. That's really great. A really great reflection. And I think, Hub people talk about the Hub as, there's 3 pillars of the Hub. It's space, community, and programs. And what, in hindsight, has been our journey, it has been, a lot about getting the space. That's, maybe that's like the first layer. You got to get the basic human needs taken care of, and, have some structures to support you. And then the community sort of fills in, and, it's been really great watching the community evolve from the pop-up days to, a year and a half into our permanent location. When we had about 45 members when we were in the pop-up, and Nika was one of them. She was one of the first people that we met there. And, it was really quiet, kind of dead. We'd look around and we'd go like, oh my God, we're building out this huge space. Like, it's going to feel so empty. What are we going to do? Are the people going to come? We were taking a risk. We had some sense that there would be more people showing up, but we just did not know. You don't know. And when we did open up, we offered 1 month of free co-working. So the month of February, it was like free to anybody. Just come in, see the space, check it out. We had talks every day with interesting speakers, really sort of seeding the field of the types of programming that we were going to be doing more of. And at the end of that month, we had 200 members. It went from 45 to 200 at the end of that month. And currently, I would say we have just under 400 co-working members, plus about 80 office members, plus about 40 some work trade members, which is one of the ways that we make this place accessible to everyone, is we offer a trade of membership for helping our team. So this evolution of the growth in the community in terms of its size and sort of complexity, as well as when we first opened up, there were all these people kind of working and looking around, and they'd come to us and they'd say, "Who are all these people? What do they do?" And we would say, "Oh, don't you know so and so?" And we were the connectors. We knew most of the people, and so we would introduce people a lot. I love doing that and saying, "Oh, you really got to talk to so and so." So that was a really fun part of my job. And then I started seeing people sitting together who I knew didn't know each other before, and I would sometimes I'd walk over and say, like, "How did you guys meet?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we were in the kitchen getting coffee, and now we're talking about this thing that we have in common." I'm like, "Awesome, it's working." So there was a phase where I started to see more of that happening. And then the next stage of development was actually seeing organizations beginning to partner. So it was actually Meridian and Optima, which was the first really visible and big example of that, of two organizations saying, "Hey, let's work together. Let's do something together." And so that was another stage of development that was really amazing to see. And so that's this evolution of the space, evolution of the community. And now I think there's this evolution of programs that's beginning to happen. Now that the founders have, gotten the space working, the community has grown, it's developing and evolving. We're starting to be able to sort of lift our heads up out of the grind of, getting the systems built and the operations smooth and all of that, and being able to say, okay, now what kind of programming do we really, and educational opportunities do we really want to have in this space? So we launched a Women of Impact programming that focuses on women entrepreneurs and women's leadership, and what's, and that bit that's different from what is good for men. And, there's this piece that women need, this extra piece or this different piece. And so we've launched that programming track as of, earlier this year, maybe around April, I think was our first Women of Impact event. We have, the U Lab is another great example of bringing in some social change, social innovation programming that has always been a dream of mine to be, for this to be a social innovation lab, really, and that we're working with our projects, with some change models, with our community, with the city, at the scale of the city, to really, first of all, understand how do we form an ecology for change. Like, what are the ecological niches that all of our organizations occupy? What are the services that we provide to the community or to some beneficiary? What are the inputs that we need either from other organizations, or what kind of resources do we need? And really begin to understand how we create an ecology for transformation. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. And I see this, like, that isn't possible until you have orgs talking to each other and collaborating. And then you can bring in something like this and start to build out the whole ecology. So, I think that's sort of an end game, where right now we're still just figuring out how these puzzle pieces fit together. And, so this is where we're at. We also, there's a permaculture class that I'm taking in the Hub right now, which I'm really excited about. I've been wanting to study permaculture for a really long time. It's something that we dreamed about, like, oh, we're going to have yoga, we're going to have permaculture, we're going to have this, we're going to have that, we're going to have social change lab. And it feels like now this is sort of the layer of this year is about the programming and deepening our learning together and learning as a community. So it's so beautiful to sit in ULab with 4 people who are also taking the permaculture course and sort of see, oh, how do these ideas influence each other? And I think, there's yet another layer that isn't real yet. It's still a dream of mine in particular that, that we begin to practice together as a community and develop and work with community practices. And what I mean by that is it's not like we're all going to do yoga together or meditate together. Those are individual practices. You can do them collectively, but there's not an interactive I-thou component. Whereas, practicing nonviolent communication or restorative justice or I'm blanking on some others that I have in mind, but the vision is that we all, or even like the business model canvas, like every person who's working on a project has their business model canvas and they carry it around and they're like, oh, hey, Nika, I just updated my business model canvas. What do you think about this value prop? Just so that we all share some common language, integral theory, U theory, business model canvas, nonviolent communication, restorative justice, so that we have some tools for dealing with being in community and that we have some common languages for supporting us in our endeavors. So there's another layer of programming that I want to bring in where we begin to inoculate our culture with some community practices that will really help us thrive and support each other better. In the community level, there's another platform or tool that we have that's called Hilo. It's like a social network that helps people collaborate and share resources and knowledge and information. I like to secretly call it a manifestation engine because it allows you to broadcast your intention. Like, I'm trying to do something big. This is my vision. It allows you to post a need. Like, in order to realize that vision, I really need a typewriter or a garden hose or some knowledge about how to do SEO, whatever. And then there's also an offer that you can make. Like, I have a lot of experience in strategy. I'd love to help anybody who needs some strategy work done. And so people can post offers, needs, and intentions on Hilo. And that's also been something that's helped us connect with each other around what we're trying to accomplish and achieve.
Yeah, actually, you started that very informally in the pop-up. Because I did some of those, like I offered some business coaching, and there were other people who were doing the same kind of thing. We didn't have the system yet,
right?
And it was really a small group, but it was a way to get into the conversations, right? Kind of like an icebreaker in a way.
Yeah,
that then has grown bigger. And I love what you're saying about having community practices. This was one of the things that actually aligned Optima and Meridian, is because we discovered that we were using a lot of these very same tools and perspectives as the foundations for the curriculum, for the approach to education. And so it lubricates the process, right? Because now you're talking about the same, you're talking in the same way about things.
Right.
And so it was very, very interesting to be in that with Ronnie Croger, the co-founder of Optima. When we started the conversation, it was like, yeah. so there's something that makes collaboration more fluid in its forming that comes out of that. I wondered if we have about another 10 minutes. So
wait, can I piggyback on something you just said? I've heard great things about your collaboration workshop. And I think that's another part of the community practice, like getting 80% of our members to, deepen their collaborative practice. I think that's another thing that I would add to that list. And I think we should talk about that offline. Something like that, I think, is going to be really, really, I don't know what's the word. Beneficial is too weak. It's gonna really help the community gel in a way that I just think it's going to be like rocket fuel. It's going to be, if we can really develop a collaborative culture and a collaborative language and a collaborative practice, that would be phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Ronnie and I have just enjoyed doing this with people so much because people jump into it. It's like they've been waiting for it, really. And they just needed the framework to support it happening. The other thing programmatically that I wanted to mention too is that there have been all of the Black Lives Matter related programs, and then the Beyond the Culture of Separation classes, and I graduated from the first cohort of that, which also is part of the capacity building. That like white people doing our own work to recognize the institutionalization of racism in the United States and in ourselves. And then be able to really move into being real allies in social justice. So it's also multifaceted, the different pieces that are being put into place to allow that to happen, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Other questions that people have? We have about another 8 minutes here.
I have a question. This is Maria. Hi. So I love the ideas, the vision. It's all so inspiring, and I'm loving hearing about all of this. And I'm wondering about the financial viability part of it. I'm imagining the size of your space and how much it must cost to run it. And I'm just kind of wondering how the numbers are panning out in terms of membership and what people pay, and just kind of wondering about how that piece is unfolding.
It's a great question. I built a very, very bottom-up financial model for all of the businesses. I was the CFO for a while. I really have never liked numbers. Have never liked being particularly financially. I haven't been particularly financially responsible in my life. As a college student, had lots of debt and credit cards and had to get out of that mess, and sort of learned everything the hard way in terms of my personal finances. But I really felt like it was good medicine for me to really take on that role and do the financial modeling and take on that level of responsibility for this business. And it was hard. I didn't love it, but I worked really hard at it, mostly because I was scared of making a mistake. So I did this incredibly complex, incredibly, thought through every single assumption of like how many people are going to see the email and how many people, and just sort of like whittled it down until I could be sure that, we would sell a certain number of something or other. And it turns out that the financial model, and I wasn't the only one who worked on it, it was a collaborative effort of many people, but I really carried it. And it turns out that in terms of the expenses, we did a really great job of estimating our expenses, and we aimed high. We were conservative in things being more expensive than we thought. So we do really well against our expense estimates on our financial, in our actual, budget versus actual. In terms of the revenue, we have learned a lot of things about the business. It's seasonal. People drop their memberships when it's summertime. They drop their memberships in the holidays. So there's a seasonal variability that we've learned about our business. The events business is also seasonal, but in the summertime, it tracks with memberships and it goes down, but in the holidays, it actually tracks up. That's our busiest season, is the holidays, because people are having their holiday parties, and there's a lot going on at the end of the year, the celebrations. So it's been really interesting to really see the business model through a couple of annual cycles now and see how things vary throughout the year. In terms of overall growth, I think we're growing, and there is a capacity issue that Tiffany pointed out that we need to address in order to keep that part of our business growing and feeling good for that customer, the co-working customer. In terms of our overall numbers, we're beating our projections. Probably, I think, as of the end of the second quarter, in our second quarter report, we were, like $50,000. We're not profitable yet. We weren't projected to be profitable yet. We'll hit profitability in year 3. We're ahead of our projections, so that'll happen a little bit sooner. And right now we're running about $50K ahead of our projections. So the business is growing. All of that being said, co-working is not a great business model. It's really hard to squeak out more profit out of the space when you have so many fixed costs and real space related costs, and you have maintenance maintenance expenses and whatnot to maintain all of these systems. So it's a physical space is I guess if I don't think I would not do it again, but if I had known what a big deal it is to operate a building and operate a space, I might have had second thoughts anyway. It's a lot of work. It's really hard. It's the basic human need part. So if it isn't done well, people are really unhappy. And I think it's also, that's on the hard side, but when you sort of look at what it provides to have this space here and have it be beautiful and well set and ready to use, it's such a gift to our community. It's such a gift to Oakland to really create a home for all of these people who are, really, really doing amazing things and really making an impact in the world. So, so we're doing well. I think, maybe the next stage for us that is going to get us, we're kind of in this founders, we're sort of in a founders trap at the moment. Like, I don't pay myself enough to hire somebody at market rate to replace myself in the role that I'm doing and sort of move on to higher value work rather than sort of focusing more closer to the ground on the operational stuff. So we have to grow a little bit more before I can properly replace myself. This is a hard place to be. This is a hard place to be in the life cycle of a company, I think, because it's like, can't quite see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we got to work really hard with what we've got to grow it enough to like get myself out of this role. But I think the light at the end of the tunnel isn't actually going to come from squeaking another couple of percent out of each of the businesses. I think where it's really going to come from is some bigger partnerships, maybe some corporate partnerships or some program related funding. We just won a grant from the SBA for our accelerator programming and memberships that we wrap around programs. So I think that helps us a lot. And, some significant partnerships with values-aligned corporate partners is also going to bring in some, additional funding and revenue. We're working on a couple of those with some folks. I hope we can announce some of them by maybe first or second quarter next year, sort of long relationship building timeline. But that's the kind of thing where, if we're providing, curation services, HR type services, really understanding what that type of a partnership finds value in who we are, and really making some offerings around that get people, out of their corporate headquarters into an environment like this, or, sort of externships, if you will, or HR, recruiting, employee retention. Maybe it's curating some programming around their industry focus or their market or some products, doing product development with really innovative entrepreneurs, that kind of thing. So we're really working to define our value prop in those types of partnerships. And, I think that's, to me, where I get out of this founder's trap of, not being able to replace myself, not being able to pay somebody enough to really replace myself for what I do. Anyway, I think that, don't know if that answered your question. I think we're over time. Sorry about that.
No, that was an amazing answer. Yeah. I just have another quick question. Do you provide, as a coffee addict myself, do you provide coffee and ask people to donate $1 because you brought in the fair trade organic, or do they pay for it?
No, we just have a jar and it says suggested donation. It tells a little story, and
that's awesome.
And then we just ask people to kick in $1.
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to wrap up, and I just wanted to appreciate Lisa for the depth of transparency that you've brought to this dialogue this evening, and which can be very, very rare. It helps all of us to have a view into the experience that you and the co-founders have had with this very unique organization, and be able to learn from that sharing, so you didn't just kind of gloss over, or just give us the tiny first layer. You really opened up to us, and I just wanted to thank you very, very much for that, because that makes it so, in depth and rich. And to send us, I also wanted to just repeat something that Lisa shared with me when we were preparing for this webinar, was that she was asked, kind of what the secret sauce was for the success so far of the Impact Hub Oakland, and she said love. That is a vital element in the success of this organization, and I would say in every kind of success. People come into the space and they can feel the love, and that is so much the value that people are looking for, and the sense of belonging that goes with that. That I can't see that it will fail. So thank you all very, very much for attending tonight, and we'll be posting this on YouTube, and I'll send out the link. So if you want to delve into it more and listen to different parts of it, you'll have that opportunity, or you can also share it with other people that you think would be interested in it. And have a very good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nika. Thank you, everyone. It was great to meet you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.